Hello and welcome to another knitting pod. I am Lena and this is a space where we chat about yarn and knitting and all sorts of making and reading and life and pretty much anything you could ever want. I am so glad you're here. To be honest, I'm just so grateful to be sitting down with you guys. It's been 2 weeks. We had Thanksgiving here in the States, and it just feels like an eternity since I got to sit down with you guys and catch up. And, breaks can be very clarifying. Breaks can either tell you that you're not enjoying something as much as you think you are, or they can tell you you are moving in the right direction. And I cannot tell you how much I missed taping and chit-chatting with you guys and exchanging all sorts of thoughts about all sorts of things. So anyway, I hope you had a lovely holiday break, whatever you did, whether it was super quiet or super crazy. I hope it was lovely. And if you don't live in the United States or you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope you were well, just because I do. Anyway, if you are new here, thank you for being here and giving this space a chance. We're going to jump right in. As you can see, I do have a finished object. This is the Positivity Beanie by Tori Yu, and I cast this on, I think, like the week before Thanksgiving. I cast this on, I believe, on a Monday, and I finished it by Sunday, and I was working on other things at the same time. So that should tell you how much I enjoyed making this hat. It was an absolute blast. And y'all, this is a fingering weight hat. So this is not like a bulky or worsted weight hat. It's a fingering weight hat in some easy color work, which I never really thought I could finish in 6 days, but it was just so addictive. I can't say enough good about this hat. It's just such a great shape. I love the way the top is. I know you guys know what I mean. If you knit hats, the way the decreases in the crown are designed really affects the way it looks. And for me, this just is the perfect hat. I loved the length of the crown. I did not adjust it at all. I followed the directions exactly. And oh my gosh, what a joy to knit. And as I'm talking about this, I'm actually remembering that I made a mistake somewhere. Oh, it was in the crown decreases. I made a mistake. I did not read the chart meticulously. I don't know if you guys feel this way, but sometimes when things are simple, I tend to make more mistakes. And when they are really complicated, I tend to be slow and methodical, and I don't make as many mistakes. In this situation, I wasn't reading the chart correctly, and I was doing too many decreases. And I only tell you this because, well, so that if you make this hat, you pay attention. I think it's easy for that to happen. But also, even despite the fact that I had to rip back, which is not super fun or easy in color work, I still finished it in 6 days. So I know it's the holiday time. It's a time when a lot of us, well, not me, but maybe a lot of you are gift knitting. And I think this would be a really fun hat. I think this could appeal to so many people, especially teenagers. I tend to have very immature taste. So I usually love what like 10 to 15-year-olds like. And I think this would be a really fun hat for a teenager or a young person generally. What else do I have to say about it? I really cannot tell you enough how much I love the shape and style. I am totally sold on Tori Yu. This was my first project by her, and she has a few other hat designs that I would totally be into. And also her clothing designs. I have found those like simpler, streamlined knits are usually what work in my wardrobe the best. The really fun, crazy knits, I usually just do not find myself wearing as much, and not even fun or crazy is not the right word, but more like intricate lace or color work or anything like that. I find myself the kind of life I lead is just, it's not complicated. This is how I dress. Hoodies and a beanie to cover dirty hair. So anyway, she has a lot of designs that are very simple and classic and very wearable. And I'm excited to dive into her collection, especially because she is a younger up and coming designer. And you guys know, if you've been here, that I really like trying to support people that are up and coming. So if you ever have a designer that is not super well known, please leave a comment and send me a message about that, because I love learning about new designers from you guys. Anyway, back to this hat real quick. I used Pearl Soho linen quill in the colorway cobalt blue, perhaps. It was in my stash. And then the white cream color was also in my stash. It is a high country wool, something like that. I think that's the name. So here's my only problem. And this is not a problem specific to this hat. It's just a problem I have generally. I'm a very loose knitter. I knit continental style, and I think a lot of continental style knitters are looser. I know that about myself. But so I dropped down a needle size on the ribbing and the body. Literally, I don't know that there's a smaller needle I could have used. I mean, yes, there is, but it would have been the equivalent of like what I would have used for a sock. This is non-superwash yarn, yet I feel like it's stretching so much and making it far too loose for my liking. If there's one thing I could change about this hat, it would be that it's a little bit snugger. I might try to fiddle with it and add in I have elastic thread, and I wouldn't put it all the way around, but maybe just like in the back, I would do that. I don't know. I might just fiddle with it to see if there's anything I can do to tighten it up a little bit, because like I love a nice snug hat, especially at this time of year. It's so cold. I would love this to be like, look, just a little snugger. So that's really frustrating. I also think it's probably looser because it's color work, and I do try to make sure there's enough room for my floats and not, I don't want any puckering or anything. So I try to make sure there's enough space, and I think that probably contributed also. So yeah, that's a little frustrating, but like I said, there's only one hat I've ever made that fits my head absolutely perfectly, and that is the wide rib hat. I always get confused what it's called. The wide rib hat by Pearl Soho. And I think that's because it comes in like 5 sizes, and I think it's really my son's hat, but sometimes I still wear it. I think I made like a child size. But in a hat like this, there actually is another size that's a child size, but I didn't want to make it and have it be too small. So anyway, I'm blathering on about sizing, but hats are tricky. And I'm sure you're asking yourself, did you make a gauge swatch? No, I did not. I refused to gauge swatch for a hat because it almost seems like half the hat's work would be, like I could finish half a hat in a gauge swatch. And I know maybe I'd have a better fitting hat, but I still just, how small of a needle am I willing to knit a hat with? Anyway, we're getting into abstract theoretical questions. The bottom line is this is a super fun hat. Go forth and knit it if you have any desire. I also think it would be really fun to kind of mess with the faces a little. Like my favorite emoji to use on my phone is the one that's just like a flat line. It's like 2 eyes and a flat line. I love that emoji, and I think if it would have been really fun to make some of them like that. Or my son even said like it would be funny if you made the front all happy and then the back all sad faces, and then you could like switch it up. Anyway, there's so many ways to make this a really, personal knit. Also, one modification I did make real quick before I forget, she has you knit the brim and then fold it under and stitch it shut. So it's a closed brim. And I think the reason she does that is because she wants you to be able to see the full smiley faces. I opted not to do that because I like the dimension of the brim when it's folded up. Do you see what I mean? Like, I like that this sticks out a little bit. And I figured that I could always, if I didn't like it, go back and stitch it shut from the inside. Also, I read somebody's review said that doing that made it feel like it stretched out more, and I could totally see that. So considering that that's a usual problem I have, stretching hats, maybe I have a pin head. I have no idea. I feel like I have a regular sized head for my height, but I don't know. So anyway, 100% recommend this knit. It was just an absolute blast. Last thing, and you're like, wow, you talking about this hat a lot, but I love it. I changed up the colors so that I was going to make the whole thing Smurf blue and the smiley faces white, but I just felt like switching it up, and I actually love the way this turned out. So that is that. And I'm telling you guys, this Smurf blue is wackadoo, but I love it. I think it's so unusual and fun, and it's like a real standout color for good or for bad, but for me, it's good. And I think you just have to wear what makes you happy. I don't do, things that I think are appropriate or age appropriate or societally appropriate. I just like to wear what makes me happy. And this makes me happy. So that is that. Switching gears completely to the other side of knitting, in terms of substance, color, texture, everything is the Bavaria shawl. I finally cast it on, you guys. It has been a long time coming. I have been talking about this pattern for so long. And usually, I think I said this last time, usually when I love a pattern, 10 patterns will, jump it in my queue of desired makes, and I never end up making that. But this one has been just solidly in my mind, and I finally cast it on, and I shall show you. First, let me just tell you the yarn again real quick, because I've talked about this a lot. This is Green Mountain Spinnery's Music DK. I think that's what it's called, the type of yarn. It's just a very woolly wool. There's no, there's no stuff in here added. It's just woolly wool, no nylon, no alpaca to make it softer or anything. The color is Mean Mr. Mustard. And you guys know, if you've been here, you've heard me obsess. If you've not been here, I'm obsessed with this yarn color. I am holding it double with this gorgeous dark mustard Knitting for Olive mohair. I was so thrilled when my local yarn shop had this, because I just thought this would be a really pretty color combination and make this monochromatic shawl really special. And as I had really been wanting to cast it on, I took the plunge on adding in that mohair. Here is what I have so far. So you start at this tip and you have this giant garter stitch panel. I will say I got really sick of this. Sometimes I find garter stitch to be really relaxing. This time it felt like I was just dying to just get to the pattern part. So you've got these patterned bands, and I will try to show you. So at this point, you start, it's a stockinette background with these diagonal lines, which I think is so pretty. I'm trying to figure out the best way. Maybe this is the best way to show you. It's hard to show these big things. Maybe that's better. Yeah. So you see those columns that are diagonal. They are made by, purling instead of knitting. And then up here you get some bobbles and these beautiful cables that have this very beautiful, to me, like they look very plant-like. I love this I just loved this. I think it's so beautiful and it's so simple, but the effect is so stunning. And I just think, oh, I should have said, it's been a while, y'all. I'm rusty. This is the Bavaria Shawl by Isabel Kramer. And I was going to say, I think Isabel Kramer is just the queen of perfect details. I just think these pattern bands are perfect. It's so well thought out. Yeah, this pattern part is a lot more enjoyable than this garter stitch part. And I think I have figured out why. As someone who actually really likes garter stitch, like I'm making my daughter the half and half triangles wrap by Pearl Soho. This is a shawl that is entirely in garter stitch and is made with 5 skeins of light fingering weight yarn. So it is a lot of knitting, and I am maybe 2/3 of the way done with it, and I have loved every stitch of it. It's been a total joy. The garter stitch has been great. So did this feel like a total slog? And sadly, I think it has to do with my yarn. I don't know whether it is the fact that I'm holding these two together or the fact that this is a very woolly wool, but I am just not enjoying knitting with this. I don't know, like I said, I don't know if it's this or that I added this. It's just not flowing smoothly through my needles. And I use these ChiaoGoo, stainless steel needles. So I use these for everything. This is my holy grail needle. I have an interchangeable set. I have the shorty set. I use them for everything. There's something about this combination that is just not flowing beautifully through my fingers. It's almost like I feel like I'm fighting the yarn, and it is a very frustrating feeling. I cannot get like a good speed or rhythm with it. And I'm just really sad about that because you guys know how much I was looking forward to this project, but it's just not felt as joyful in the making as I had anticipated it to. And I don't think it's the pattern. I think it's the materials. I think the best knitting experiences are when you forget. I've talked about this before, like you forget your knitting. It's like you are becoming one motion and you're becoming one with your materials, where the yarn is flowing, the needles are perfect. Like it's just all happening. This is not that project, and I really thought it was going to be. So that's a bummer. And I don't know, it crystallized in my mind that this is why I wasn't enjoying this project as much when I got home from our Thanksgiving trip, and I really didn't want to knit on this anymore. So I picked up my heirloom quilt cardigan. I just cast on a new square, and I'm using the Rowan felted tweed for that. And the minute I started working with that yarn, I literally was like, yes, this is what I have been missing. This is the feeling I have been missing with the Bavaria shawl. It's just this like smoothness of the process. And it's not as woolly, and it is a blend. The Rowan felted tweed definitely has, I think, a little viscose and maybe alpaca, something else to make it a smoother yarn. So I really don't know what the problem here is. If I really wanted to know, I guess I could cast something else on in just this and see. But I do think anytime I've held 2 strands of yarn together, you are having to be a little more mindful that like every single stitch you make pulls both strands through. There are actually places here that I've looked back and that has not happened. And does it drive me crazy? Yes, but I'm trying not to fixate on that. So look right, hold on, I'm trying to show you where. Here we go. See right here, do you see that little loop of mohair that I did not catch properly? I didn't realize that until I was like up here, and there was no way I was gonna try to fix it. But that like kind of thing is probably why I'm a lot more conscious of each stitch. So you know, I'm sharing that as a lesson for you guys that yes, mohair makes everything so much more special, but it also can be a little bit fussier to work with if you are holding things double, but it does look beautiful. I don't think that it captures, the camera can capture how beautiful the fuzz of the mohair is. I'm trying to see if there's an angle. One of you had said last time, left a comment saying that the mohair will fluff up, and I really think you were right. Whoever said that, I'm grateful because I was excited to see and notice it fluffing up. I think you're absolutely right. I think at the end of it, when all is said and done, I'm going to love having this shawl, but I just wish I felt like as obsessed with it as I thought I was going to feel. We all know that feeling that we've had with certain projects that it's just like, oh my gosh, it was the perfect process and end result. And I wish I could say this was that. Another thing I will say really quickly, do I say anything really quickly? I don't know why I always say that, but I will just say it at my own pace. I did not follow Isabel Kramer's bobble construction method because I do not have any interest in turning the fabric back and forth. Andrea Mowry has a fantastic tutorial for a bobble method where you just have to purl backwards. So you knit 3 into 1 stitch, purl those 3 backwards, and then knit them through the back loop and then create the bobble that way. And I am telling you, that is the only way I will make a bobble. I will never turn it back and forth. It makes a beautifully full bobble and you don't have to fuss. It's like the easiest thing ever. This was the method she used in that golden hour shawl that I'm obsessed with. My most beloved shawl. And that is the method I will use here. So please keep that in mind for your future bobbling, because I'm telling you, baubles are so gorgeous and effective in a fabric, but they're not always the most fun to make. This method, just as fun as it is cute. This project, I only took this project to Dallas when I went for Thanksgiving. I only took this, which is very rare. I usually take 2 things. I would have taken this, but I finished it in time because it was obsession worthy and I couldn't stop knitting on it. This I worked on the whole time I was there, and it reminded me of why I am not a monogamous knitter. I love having multiple projects, and I often am drawn to trying to be monogamous because I feel like I would make it through projects faster. But number one, the goal of knitting is not to move through projects faster. I think knitting is one of those things that reminds us that life is not so much of life. I think we spend waiting for the next thing, like we're waiting for the weekend, or we're waiting for our vacation, or we're waiting until we get this or look like that. And we're not really living in the moment. We're not present. And one of my favorite things about knitting is it's like this active practice of presence, of slowness, of making one stitch after the other and just feeling the joy in each moment. So I really try to remind myself that the goal is not to just finish this project and get to the next project. The goal is to immerse myself with as much presence and joy into this moment. But all that being said, I love being able to work on one thing and then feel like I need a change of pace and pick up something else that's on other needles. That's my ideal way to knit. That's how knitting brings me the most joy. I think sometimes I don't want to say burned out, but just kind of, I want a change of materials. Like this is a one color shawl, and sometimes I don't want to work with this color. And so when I got back, I was thrilled to see the half and half wrap because the colors are bright and the fabric is so different, and it's just such a little burst of joy to work with something different. That's so when I got back, I just picked up that heirloom quilt cardigan and just started a square, and I had so much joy in finishing a square. But yeah, I know some of you are monogamous knitters. Some of you guys like to have something, you know, a couple things going. There is no right or wrong. I don't think I have to say that. I think it's just finding what brings you the most joy in your knitting. I think when I'm happy in my knitting, I'm happy in my life. So anyway, I am tearing through this thing though, and I'm also tearing through my yarn. I'm a little concerned I might not have enough yarn. However, I do not anticipate this being a small piece. Look how enormous this is. And I am about 3/4 of the way through the first chart, and there's a second chart. So even if I don't have enough yarn, I will probably just bind off early because the pattern is repetitive, the pattern bands, and I'm definitely sure I could cast off early. I would be reluctant to go order another ball of this yarn. I know I'll have enough mohair, but it's this one I'm a little concerned about. So yeah, that is that. It's fun to be able to show you guys all the progress I've made because we haven't been together in 2 weeks, like I said. Now, where is a place I'm not making any progress? You will be unsurprised that it is my husband's hand-sewn sweater that I have to rip back in the sleeve. I've told you guys this. It's so beautiful, I have to say. I haven't pulled it out in 2.5 weeks because I was so irritated when I figured out that I had to rip it back that I just didn't want to see it. Now I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so pretty and I've made so much progress. He tried it on and it fits beautifully, but like I said last time, he wants the sleeves to taper more, so I have to take this back. I am not looking forward to that, although because it's stockinette, it should be easy, but it's such a tight weave, like the stitches are so small. I'm thinking right now that that is going to be a tedious thing to pick up and rip back, and I'm just going to keep reminding myself that this is the man I love more than anybody on the planet, so I shall persevere through. He's not going to want a vest, so we're going to have to figure a way forward. I did pull out just before this because I was like, you guys have to hold my feet to the fire. I need you guys to motivate me to finish this thing, and I pulled out a sweater that I know he loves to follow for the sleeve taper. Let's just hope and pray that when I lay them down, it doesn't involve me having to like rip back to way back here, which I don't think I will, because when he tried it on, it was only when I was, you know, the last try on that he said that basically below the elbow, he wanted it to taper more. So hopefully that won't be too painful. I will keep you posted. Like I said, I'm going to try to use our weekly podcast to motivate me to get it done before we meet again, truly, because he really is excited about this sweater and he is the most deserving human of a hand knit that there is on this planet. So I really, really want to get it done sooner than later. And I know if I could just get this first sleeve done, the second sleeve will fly because I will have, you know, a guide on the decreases. Okay, last project update is the heirloom quilt cardigan. My love for that project continues to burn with the light of 1,000 suns. I love that project so much that it's going to get its own podcast, okay? We're not going to just lump it in here. I have so much to do and say about that we're going to do that separately, because we cannot turn this into like a mini series, not a mini series, like a maxi series, basically, of knitting today, just because we have 2 weeks to catch up on. So anyway, okay. That, my friends, is all the knitting I have for you today. If you enjoy life and non-knitting catch-ups, please stay and visit with me. If you don't, and you're like, I don't need to know anything about your life, I just need to know about your knitting, perfect. I will see you next time, I hope. Please subscribe if you haven't already, because I have a lot of fun podcasts coming up with lots of knitting and non-knitting content, so you wouldn't want to miss it. So please subscribe. Onwards towards life. I think one of the last life updates I gave you guys was that I had quit my job teaching fitness and yoga, which was a very difficult decision to make. And you guys were so incredibly kind and supportive in every way. And I wanted to give you a little update. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, when we step away from something, it's very clarifying, right? Like we either realize we really miss it and we need it in our lives, or we realize, wow, like I was giving a lot to that thing and it wasn't giving that much to me. And that was my suspicion when I quit. That was the feeling I was getting. And I think what was keeping me were two things. Number one, it was such an exhausting job physically. And when you are physically exhausted, you then are translated into emotional and mental exhaustion. And I thought to myself, I'm so physically exhausted that I can't feel the satisfaction of this job, but I know it's there. And if I were not so tired, I would feel more joy from this thing. And it turns out that that was not true at all. Having stepped away from it, I was so worried that I was going to miss it deeply. There were so many people that I got to work with each week that I loved, and there were moments of true joy and connection and transcendence. And having stepped away from it, I don't miss it one bit. I mean, it shocks me how much I don't miss it. I have deeply fond memories of it. I think about it every day, but everything has a season in life, and the season for that was over. And I'm just so grateful that I was able to step away from it. It's just, I think one of the reasons, I said, there were two reasons I think I was holding on to it. One was because I thought it was fulfilling me more than it was. And and one thing I will say about that is I cannot tell you how life-changing it is to go from constant exhaustion physically and emotionally and mentally to space where you're not exhausted. I was so worried I would feel empty and like I was at loose ends. To the contrary, it's like I feel like a dam has been broken, and the rush of joy and energy that has come into my life from stopping that exhaustion and letting life back in, it's just, I can't explain it. And I don't think I'm doing a great job explaining it in words, but it's like suddenly I'm busier than ever, but everything I'm doing I feel like I'm running, rather than running on fumes, I'm like running on fireworks. Like I'm so excited. Everything I'm doing, the hours that fill up my day are filled with joyful passion rather than like slogging from one thing that I have to do to the next thing that I have to do. Like I feel like I have passion back in my life because I'm not just exhausted all the time. And it's so funny that I've told you guys over and over and over that the thing that brings me the most joy on this planet is parenthood. And there was so much of it that I was like missing because I was just so tired. I was not missing it physically. I was missing out on the true joy and presence of my kids. I was there, but I wasn't fully there. And the ironic part about it is that second reason I was saying, I was holding on to the teaching because I was so afraid that when my kids go to college, I will just be left behind and have no meaning in my life. That I was like, this is something that brings me so much meaning, that this thing will insulate me from future heartbreak and pain when they go off. And only now can I see how untrue that was. Nothing insulates you from heartbreak or pain. There's no amount of busyness that would have made that transition easier. You can be super busy and still heartbroken at the same time. There is no cheat around how difficult I know that will be when my son goes off to college in 4 years, whatever that is, 4.5 years. You know, I know I've had friends say like, why are you pre-mourning this? And it's not a pre-mourning, it's a constant awareness that every moment is precious. And now I'm actually living in the present moment, in each moment, rather than just thinking about the future and trying to build my present to insulate me from pain. I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys, or if it's just me and my overthinking ways, but it has been just like the most incredible transition. And I don't know, I think that so many times we think when we're about to make a change, whether it's a change in job or a change in a relationship or a change, maybe you want to move, maybe you want to take a big leap that you are just scared to make. So many times we think to ourselves, like, what if something bad happens? Or what if I miss it? Or what if all the bad things, all the shades of bad that we can fill into that what if? This made me realize, like, what if something good happens and all the shades of amazing? Like, what if it's bright pink instead of like dull gray? And that's no offense to you if you love gray, you can switch those. It's just, to me, like, what if my life turns more neon pink instead of dull when I make this change? And that is what has happened. Like, I feel like so much joy and possibility and excitement has rushed into the space opened up by giving away the thing I knew had expired, you know? Anyway, I had to update you on that because it just felt so incredibly potent of a lesson in my life. And I have to say, I'm so grateful for you guys. So some of you are in my stage of life where you have kids that are not young anymore, but not off in their own lives. They're in that in-between stage, you know, teenage, tweenage age. And then some of you have gone through this and are on the other end. And both times, you know, both types of comments I get and messages I get are so just, I don't know, they just stay with me. Like I've told you guys before, but the ones that have been the most helpful are the ones of you that have been through this transition from having kids at home to letting your kids fly off into the world. And the comfort, the words of comfort, the words of assurance, the words of, yes, it's hard, but it's beautiful. Yes, it's hard, but the relationship continues to evolve and change into something. Yes, it's hard, but your life grows in different ways. It's just been an incredible source of comfort in a time that is hard. And not everybody is an overthinker, overfeeler like me. Some people seem to move through life with a lot more ease, but that has never been my way. I am not at ease most of the time. I'm usually, you know, wrestling with life and its emotions. So anyway, thank you for being such good friends and such comforting companions in life's journey. I know that sounds absurd, but that's what it feels like to me. That's what you guys are to me. So, okay, that's that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to say right now, or if we should save it. I have so many podcasts coming up that I'm trying to like ration it so that one isn't like 2 hours long. You know what I mean? So perhaps I will leave you here. We'll talk about books another day. I hope that life is treating you well. I personally cannot believe that tomorrow is December 1st. That just feels surreal. It feels like it was January 1st yesterday. And I don't know. I do think that life feels like it's going faster the more fun I'm having, the more like vividly and passionately I'm building my own life, the faster it goes, because I think life goes by fast when you're having a good time. So I do feel that way. I just can't seem to get, I don't know, time just doesn't seem to go slowly enough. But I hope you had a lovely Thanksgiving. I hope you've got some wonderful knitting plans for December. My knitting plans are just to keep going. I don't have plans for something new. Today at least. Maybe I will as I contemplate the rest of this year. So anyway, I will let you go. I hope you have a lovely weekend, and I will see you again very soon. Take good care. Bye.